Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Mother's Basement, and today we are checking out the definitive top 10 Isekai anime. Interesting, the top 10. I'm just gonna throw it out there. If Escaflowne is not on this list, then this list is not even worth, like, acknowledging. Okay, Escaflowne is one of the best goddamn Isekais out there. Yeah, ReZero, boom. I'm not necessarily saying which order they should be in. I just think they should be on this list. Let's see what is on this list.
Isekai, tales of ordinary people, mostly Japanese
Hey,
teenagers,
here we go.
sent to extraordinary worlds, mostly by way of portals or truck collisions, has reigned supreme as anime's most dominant and oversaturated genre.
Blame Sword Art Online though. You know, it got so popular and then it's like, oh, we need all to jump on that.
For a solid decade. But with conventional fantasy finally making a serious comeback new-ish stuff like solo leveling doing the numbers, its days at the top may be numbered. So the timing feels appropriate to finally make use of everything I've learned watching like 70% of all the Isekai ever.
I mean, when your job is to watch every anime that comes out and every season has like 20 different Isekais come out, I suppose you would end up watching quite a lot of them.
I have a problem by putting together a numbered list of the 10 greatest Isekai of
all time.
In the process, we're going to explore the entire 4-decade history of the genre, along with all the subgenres that have risen and fallen through its evolution, highlighting the very best of each one.
Cool.
And, of course, we're going to meet our fair share of Kiritos along the way.
Number 10!
From Reincarnated as a Sword, to Rising of the Shield Hero, to chill campfire farm life in another world with absurd super cheat powers, RPG progression and stat screens are so synonymous with modern isekai, it'd be faster to list shows that don't have them, especially with how long these titles get. And
yeah, they do, don't they?
That's without even getting into all the isekai about people getting sucked into RPGs like Kuma 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 Bear, In the Land of Leedale, Skeleton Knight in Another World, not to be confused with the skeleton who pretends to be a knight to take over another world, and of course the trendsetter for all modern isekai with all of their stat screens, Sword Art Online.
It definitely did set, like, the trend off, didn't it?
Which proved just how appealing the fantasy of actually using all those hours you wasted on video games to get ahead in life could be.
Yep.
Mom. Although, SAO does
yeah, take that!
blur the edges of the genre a bit, and raises an important question that we kind of need to answer before we can move forward with this list. Should we count VR MMO anime? Personally, I think it depends on how complete their simulation is.
Oh god, no. I remember me and my friends Dan and Steve did a pilot idea for a podcast last year, and this discussion came up on whether it is actually an isekai or not. And oh my god, I'm sure. Maybe I might throw a clip in, I'm not sure. But man, it was winding me up.
You consider Sword Art Online not an isekai?
That's right.
This is a really interesting discussion. What the hell?
It's like the quintessential isekai.
Dan!
Yes.
Genuine? Are you trying to mess with me right now?
No.
You're saying...
I'm saying.
Right, word for word, I need to put this out there now, right? You are saying Sword Art Online is not an isekai.
I would not consider isekai.
Oh,
Well, consider it then. I'm interested.
What is it then?
Digital World one.
But that's a different... So he's in a different world.
Listen, all the.
What is Digimon?
Not an isekai.
Whoa, you don't... What the Do you mean that, or are you just using that as your argument?
I mean it.
Digimon is an isekai.
Not.
Digimon's
Digimon's not an isekai.
Digimon is.
Anime like Bofuri, Goodnight World, Gundam Build Divers, or SAO Alternative Gun Gale, where the VR MMO is clearly just a third space for hanging out and doing the occasional esports.
That's so funny, this has come up as a discussion.
Are really just sci-fi about cool futuristic video games. But in Dot Hack Sign, Infinite Dendrogram, and SAO Classic, that virtual space is reality for at least some of the people inhabiting it. So, in my view, that makes those isekai. Some might argue being trapped in the game world is the essential part of the equation, but that would mean that Gate and Digimon Adventure 2 aren't isekai, which is obviously silly. I'm quibbling on this point because, to me, the best gamer isekai has gotta be the anime that best captures the spirit of gaming. And if I were more of a definition purist, or if I'd just made this list a year ago, I'd have had no choice but to give the spot to Log Horizon. But recently...
Mate, Shangri-La Frontier, Jesus freaking Christ, what an anime. If you've not watched this, this is so freaking good.
The leaderboard in my gamer heart was thoroughly conquered by Shangri-La
Shangri-La Frontier. Oh, this boss fight was so freaking cool. Yeah, the whole boss dynamic, the different, like, as soon as you clear one part, it has the transformation. You know, like, bosses have different, like, waves and that. Oh my god.
Where so many other gamer anime hand-wave their fictional game mechanics, relying on strong animation to carry their weak boss design and fight choreography, Shangri-La Frontier puts in the work to build a coherent, comprehensible game system.
It really does, and I love it. I think it's and it doesn't make it too complex to understand either. It's very easy to understand.
And not just for its central super MMO, but a whole GameStop's worth of hypothetical, horribly imbalanced VR kusoge that protagonist Sunraku makes a hobby of overcoming before he decides to give that titular god game a try.
And I love as well that we do every now and then venture into other games as well. That's really freaking cool.
Discovering in the process that all that experience breaking broken VR control systems over his knee and wrestling with bullshit design has given him the reflexes and instincts to thrive in the MMO
good
equivalent
game
of Elden Ring. And when I make that comparison, I'm speaking both to the tightness of its fake design, which makes every animated fight uniquely memorable and fun, and the richness of its made-up science fantasy lore, which all of the game's sentient AI inhabitants believe to be their real world's real history. That's what takes it into isekai territory for me.
Yeah, and like the lore and the history and stuff going on with these rabbits. Ah, it's so cool.
And adds real stakes to the anime's story as it progresses. As Sunraku and his fellow players become more and more invested in that game world and the fates of its inhabitants, it transforms from being an anime about just playing a game and having fun into something more. Of course, at the end of the day, this is a predetermined story. Sunraku wins every fight the writer wants him to win because they wrote it that way. But in the moment, it doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't.
Every battle comes across as fair and balanced.
Yeah, it does become tense sometimes. You do think, oh, he might not get it this time.
Preserving the narrative tension that Kiritos are so prone to killing. And SLF also deftly dodges the massively single-player trap that so many SAO likes fall into by giving us a huge cast of players and NPCs with their own motivations,
The NPCs
strengths,
are class, yeah.
and weaknesses. So it's never just the one guy solving every problem while his harem watches. Sunraku doesn't even have a harem for that matter. This baddie is his bro who would never date him in a million years, and this one's a guy who just likes using female avatars.
Yeah.
He has exactly one love interest in the game who wears full plate armor and is too shy to speak to him. It's honestly a great change of pace for a subgenre dominated by ecchi waifu stuff.
I'll give you that. Number 9!
Not that there's anything wrong with ecchi waifu stuff.
Yo! How not to summon a demon lord. I never watched season 2.
If I thought that, I wouldn't be this deep into a genre that features
I remember
as
enjoying
many
season 1 at
harems
the
as it
time.
does stat screens. Which is why, in 9th place, we're highlighting the trashiest harem power fantasies Isekai has to offer.
So if we're talking etch... Oh, I don't know.
Most of which feature RPG stats too, like Ari Ferretta,
Uh-huh.
How Not to Summon a Demon Lord,
Yay.
and Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy.
Don't know that
Though
one.
a few harem classics, like The Familiar of Zero, do predate that trend. And even with modern
No Game, No
titles,
Life.
not all harem power fantasies are all about the power levels. In Gate, for instance, the protag-kun who gets all the elf and princess pussy doesn't have any special magic or even sword skills.
need to watch
just
Gate.
a tank and a fuckload of guns, which
Alright.
it turns out are pretty darn effective against monsters, not to mention
Cool.
guys with swords and magic. And in No Game, No Life,
Oh, what an
Blank
anime.
wins the day and gets the girls time after time by being good at pretty much every kind of game besides RPGs. Now, the world's finest assassin reincarnates in another world does feature letter-ranked RPG skills, but as the title suggests, Protag-kun already had the skills to pay
Before
the bills
going
with
in.
kills long
Right.
before he got Isekai,
Wow,
and
the skills to pay the bills with kills. Wow.
all the magic shit he can do now is kind of just gravy. That's not to say his RPG stats are totally irrelevant to the plot. He claims to have one secret D-ranked skill that's actually his ultimate trump card. We don't know what that is yet, but looking at how his harem's been shaping up, I will say with confidence that the D doesn't stand for don't f*** your sister. But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to
Okay.
harems and stats in my trash, the bigger they go, the better.
Eminence and Shadow? Eminence and Shadow.
And Isekai don't get much bigger in either department than the Eminence.
Yes! Oh,
in the shadow.
what an anime. I am atomic!
Now,
So
explain
cool,
the
this anime is
intricacies
so
of this
good.
anime's plot.
They're so good. These 2 seasons are so good, and I cannot wait for the movie. Oh, Eminence and Shadow. Yes!
Which is about an overpowered Kirito posing as a nameless background character who thinks that he's secretly using his insanely OP magic abilities to LARP as the leader of a secret organization
When he really
made
is.
up, fighting another secret organization he made up.
Yeah.
But actually, all of that's real, and he's the only guy in the entire
doesn't
world
see it.
who doesn't realize
Yeah.
it. Would take
So good.
way more time than we've got here. So
It's
just
so
go
clever.
watch my video on the series if you want the full lowdown. To understand how Eminence earned its place on this list, though, all you really need to see is all this absolutely f***ing insane fight sakuga, the incredible variety of waifus and
And do you know what? The storytelling's phenomenal. It's such a good story.
the secret society that doubles as Sid's harem, and the incredibly skin-tight bodysuits
Hell
that are
yeah.
their uniforms. In every respect, the Eminence in Shadow is just shamelessly fun to look at, listen to, and even think about, thanks to the surprising depth of the show's character writing and the impressive breadth of its steampunkish world building. Plus, it's always on point comedy. Though, crucially, it never lets its deeply pathologically unserious hero get in the way of being seriously awesome and telling a seriously good story. Eminence in Shadow is proof positive that trashy harem isekai can have their cake. Like, holy shit, guys, there is so much cake.
There really is. My god.
While absolutely eating, too. Though that only makes it more shameful that so many other shameless isekai end up being so boring and samey in comparison.
Yeah, like, you really look at Eminence in the Shadow and take that as an example of how to just have everything. Number 8!
Believe it or not, isekai actually used to have more heroines than heroes, and reverse harems than harems back in the day.
Escaflowne? Escaflowne?
Perhaps reflecting the genre's literary forebears, many of the earliest entries were aimed at the shoujo audience, like magical girl classics Magic Knight Rayearth and Tweenie Witches, the BL-focused Kyo Kara Mao, and, of course, the OG queen of reverse harems, Fushigi Yugi. So,
Okay.
in 8th place, we're paying tribute to isekai for her.
Escaflowne. Escaflowne.
which still endure to this day, though in order to reclaim a bit of ground from all the gamer boys, many of Fushigi Yugi's descendants have evolved its concept of a girl transported into the dusty old world of an analog fantasy romance novel to focus on dating sim visual novels. As seen in Villainous at level 99, I'm the villainous, so I'm taming the last boss, the most heretical last boss queen from Villainous to Savior, I'm in love with the villainous, and Endo and Kobayashi Live, the latest on Tsundere Villainous Lisa-lette. Though even today, the genre's not all interactive books, or villainesses for that matter. Why Raeliana ended up at the Duke's mansion follows a girl who's reborn as the victim of her favorite
Oh yeah, I didn't watch this. This does sound good though.
analog mystery novel and gets pulled into a second new world of aristocratic intrigue as she tries to save herself. Meanwhile, the saint's magic power is omnipotent offers a simple, modern escapist fantasy for all the office ladies out there who wish a knight would sweep them off their feet, facilitated entirely by generic isekai summoning magic, no books involved. But as good as both of those are, you may have noticed I skipped one villainous anime earlier to save for the big reveal right now that the 8th best isekai of all time is The Ballad of Baccarina, My Next Life as a Villainous, All Routes Lead to Doom.
Do you know what? Yeah, this was good. This was really good. Yep, okay. Yep, all the different personalities within the head, having the meetings and that. Yep, this was cool.
We will now commence the first meeting to discuss possible strategies for avoiding the doom ending. Do any of you have a good idea?
Arrogant, manipulative,
Fair.
and
All right, give him
vindictive as hell, Duke's daughter Katarina Kleis is a royal terror in the figurative sense, who might just become a literal one if she ever marries her begrudging fiancé, Prince Jordo. Luckily for him, their nation, and the world,
I did like the concept of, like, she didn't remember her past life until she knocked herself on the head, and then it's like, oh, this is what I'm in.
Fortune Lover, the visual novel where she stars as the villainess, ends with her either dead or in exile, while the commoner protag-chan she loved bullying so much ends up with either her brother, her fiancé, his brother, or a random fourth hot rich boy. Though that's not quite as lucky for the reincarnated Japanese schoolgirl who ends up in Katarina's body and regains all her memories of playing Fortune Lover after a traumatic head injury at a young age. Realizing she's completely f***ed if nothing changes, the new Katarina vows to do everything in her power to prevent that fate by generally being a nicer person, using her foreknowledge of the game to befriend everyone who might get her killed, and working on her farming skills just in case she gets exiled anyway. But since she's kind of an idiot, to put it mildly, she ends up overdoing things a bit and accidentally
gets all of them to fall in love with her, yeah.
Unlocks a secret new harem ending for herself, in which all 4 of those hot rich boys are in love with her, plus both of the game's female rivals and the protagonist.
Everybody.
Though, since Katarina's again, kind of an idiot, she doesn't even realize she's caught in the middle of a big dumb polysexual polycule, and thus carries on like she's still doomed and they're all just buddies hanging out. In case you couldn't tell from every anime I highlighted in 9th place, I f***ing love harem anime, so I might be a little biased in picking this one over.
It's not like something I like choose. It's not something I look for and specifically go, right, where's my harem anime? But, like, you know, if I come across one and I like it and it's entertaining, fine. Because this was very, very enjoyable. This was 2020, wasn't it? During lockdown, I'm pretty sure.
For some of the more shoujo isekai. But under all the comedy and shenanigans, this is one of the best, most tender love stories of any sort I've ever seen. A genuinely moving tale about how sincerity and kindness can free people to be themselves. I love it so much, I made a whole other 20-minute video about it 5 years ago, if you're curious to hear more about what makes it so great.
Number 7.
Now, they've been making isekai with the shonen audience in mind for damn near as long as they have shoujo, with some, such as Inuyasha, riding the line between the two. And while the video game stuff kind of dominates with that demographic nowadays, Welcome to the Demon School Iruma-kun is still carrying that torch in modern times. But when I think of shonen isekai, it's the nostalgic titles that still really get to me. Anime like Mayhem Awakens Romance, Monster Rancher, Monkole Knights, and the all-time classic Digimon Adventure duology that pit the spunky can-do attitude of archetypal Genki 90s power of friendship boys, plus a squad of diverse and equally capable allies, in the case of Digimon, against the dangers of a harsh, unknown world. And I find that the harsher and darker those worlds get, the brighter that shonen spirit can shine. Which is why my pick for the 7th greatest isekai of all time goes to Now and Then, Here and There.
I have never heard of or seen this one, so interesting, very, very interesting. Now and Then, Here and There. Ooh, it's a bit dark.
Goofing off one quiet evening after losing a kendo match he didn't really take seriously, a carefree young boy encounters a mysterious young girl with a haunted look in her eye.
Whoa.
They watch a sunset together in a moment of unspoken yet potent connection. Then, out of nowhere, soldiers riding strange mechanical monsters appear to take her away. And before he knows it, the boy is trapped in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where the last scraps of humanity are left fighting a brutal war for the last drops of water. A problem that mysterious girl's mysterious magic pendant might just solve, though if the Mad King who's captured them gets his hands on it, the world will only get worse. Brash, naive, and incurably optimistic, Shu Matsutani is the embodiment of the shonen hero archetype. In fact, director Akitaro Daichi reused Shu's name, design, and personality as the protagonist of the anime tie-in for Bandai's attempted Pokemon clone series, Legends. And he honestly feels far more at home in that goofy show than he does in the bleak, wind-blasted hellscapes of Now and Then, Here and There. But that only enhances the show's fish-out-of-water isekai vibe and reinforces its core theme of the indomitable human spirit. Be forewarned, the world of this anime is as dark can be. We're talking press gangs of child soldiers murdering other children in cold blood, a mad despot abusing everyone and everything around him to maintain his loose grip on power and sanity, a kidnapped girl trying to sort out an unwanted pregnancy, and of course the horrific, thankfully off-screened event that leads to that. It's a difficult show to watch, but through it all, Shu perseveres, and his belief in the best of humanity persists.
God, this seems really freaking dark.
Though whether that'll be enough to overcome the horrors remains to be seen. Now and Then, Here and There is a heart-wrenching, agonizing anime, but one I believe is well worth sitting through if you can stomach it. Both for an ending that'll leave you staring at the wall in quiet contemplation, and for some of the most breathtakingly atmospheric cell animation ever put on
It does look good. Visually, it looks class.
TV anime simply don't get more beautiful than this, and as far as isekai goes, you can't get further from typical power fantasies.
Number 6.
Of course, power levels aren't the only thing people fantasize about flexing. It can be just as fun to imagine braving a new frontier armed only with your wits, using modern
Don't forget, though, Escaflowne needs to be on this list.
knowledge plus political and economic
Sasaki
savvy to
peeps.
rise in the new world and maybe even make it a better place along the way. Naturally, plenty of isekai cater to that fantasy too. For instance, reincarnated as an aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the world, follows a hardcore Nobunaga's ambition player as he uses, appraisal to recruit an unbeatable army of untapped talents from the peasantry. Though cheat skills and magic aren't a necessity in this particular niche. How a realist hero rebuilt the kingdom sees a college kid turned king using modern economic theory to raise his people's standard of living while fending off invading neighbors. And Outbreak Company's about a regular hardcore otaku using nothing but his passion for games and anime to unwittingly spread Japan's soft power and prepare a fantasy kingdom for colonization.
Fair
Sometimes,
enough.
though, this concept does get mixed up with straight-up power fantasies. The slime in Reincarnated as a Slime has badass monster powers and a cabinet full of capable political advisors. Sasaki of Sasaki and
Mate.
Peeps wields unrivaled magic and a salesman's briefcase full of anachronistically valuable
Boss
dollar
anime.
store goods. And the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and genius young lady hinges on both ladies' ability to combine powerful magic with scientific principles. But in my book, these sorts of stories are at their most satisfying when the hero or heroine truly starts from nothing, which is what makes Ascendance of a Bookworm the 6th greatest isekai ever made.
Do you know what? I've not watched a single episode of this, but I haven't heard a single bad word being mentioned about it. Is there 2 seasons of it? I've heard it's really worth watching. I'm going to have to at some point.
ブツブツが出てきたらひっくり返すの。せーの。
Hey!
Urano
That looks good.
Motosu lived for books, reading every day and dreaming all her life of becoming a librarian until those very books crushed her in an earthquake-induced avalanche.
Oh.
And if you think
What a way to
that's a
go.
cruel irony, wait till you hear the chaser. After her death, she finds herself reborn as Mine, the sickly daughter of a peasant family in a pre-printing press medieval world. Meaning,
No
there's
books.
a good chance she may never see another book again,
No.
even if she makes it to adulthood, which doesn't seem very likely considering all her
God,
medical issues
harsh
in an
world.
era that's also pre-hand washing. So Mine does what any self-respecting nerd would do in her tiny handmade clogs, sets out to write a book of her own on whatever medium's available. Starting with clay tablets, which turn out to be much harder to make than they look, then soot crayons on papyrus, also harder than it looks, until finally she moves on up to inventing paper and, f*** it, why not, oil-based ink and woodblock printing.
Class.
Since she wouldn't get much work done with an itchy scalp and hair all over the place, she invents all-in-one shampoo while she's at it. And that's just the start. Before she knows it, she's low-key speedrunning the Industrial Revolution Dr. Stone style.
Hell yeah.
Well, speedrun might give you the wrong idea here. Ascendance of a Bookworm is about as slow a burner as fantasy anime get, but that just gives us more time to bask in the depth of its
And everything
characters
else,
and
right.
the intricate details of its masterful world building. The scope of which naturalistically opens up as Mine's own world expands from her family's small apartment to the commoner's ward of the city to the forest around its walls and beyond.
I think that's something that some shows do tend to forget, is that they'll focus on the actual idea they've come up with, and then they won't take a step back for a moment and go, right, but what else is going on? We can make that our focus, but some anime will not do any focus on the world around them, won't give other characters time on screen. We don't build relationships with people within, the world. We don't understand the how civilization works, any kind of societal structure, things like that. Sometimes anime needs to just take a step back, keep that idea going, but work on everything else around it. So cool.
With the story in turn growing gradually more fantastical and political as the circle widens until eventually its scope becomes downright epic. Though the focus always remains fixed on industrial, economic, and cultural concerns, delivering better than any other anime that's attempted it on that promising premise of transforming another world with modern earthly knowledge.
Number 5.
Equally and inversely compelling is the concept of fantasy characters trying to navigate and survive our harsh reality.
Ooh. So reverse. Maybe. Devil is a part-timer?
Which is why in 5th place, I'm spotlighting anime's best reverse isekai, an impressively diverse subgenre. Jahi-sama will not be defeated and the Overlord at work
So
both
no, then.
tackle the concept of demons working minimum wage jobs to survive.
Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2 was good, but I think there was too much of a break in between to actually kind of like go, okay, hey, there's actual plot going on in Season 2. Season 1 was like more of a comedic approach. Season 2 had more going on with like the world structure of where they came from and stuff, but I still enjoyed Season 2.
Without their magic from nearly opposite angles. Meanwhile, Amagi Brilliant Park
What's
follows a
this
whole
gonna
magic
be?
kingdom of fantasy creatures led by Queen Latifah, no relation, as they struggle to run their own business with a little help from
Fate?
Kanye West,
Fate
also
series?
no relation. Though, speaking of pop stars, if time travel counts as reverse isekai, and I think it does, ya boy Kong Ming's story of a legendary Three Kingdom strategist using his skills to help his
This
friends
does look
conquer
really
the
freaking
Tokyo
cool.
music scene is a ton of fun. And so is watching Princess Sarah use her incredible magic powers and newfound passion for Detective Conan to aid her adopted dad Sosuke's struggling private eye business
Right.
in a salad bowl of eccentrics. Then Isekai Izakaya and Restaurant to Another World both depict earthly eateries that occasionally cater to reverse isekai clientele. Though both series are less about business concerns than chill slice of life vibes, which also abound in Otaku Elf, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and Girls Bravo. Now, if you'd rather see fantastical characters tearing up the real world with their crazy powers, Dead Mount Deathplay is a fantastic option, and so
I gave up on it. I watched the first 3 episodes, then stopped. But then I remember Giguk saying that like Season 2 was coming, and he read the manga, and that's where it gets real good. I was like,
is Digimon Tamers. But of course, I'm inclined to think my 5th place pick, Recreators, is the best one of all.
I still need to watch this. This does seem really fucking awesome.
逃がさないわよ
Yes.
It is a bit lighter on the fights than some might like, but that's because it's equally
doesn't
focused on the
he create
internal conflicts of its characters, which are
characters?
fascinating because they come from not just fantastical worlds, but explicitly fictional ones. Spoofs of popular Japanese properties ranging from horny visual novels to mystery regular novels to mecha anime and even Walmart JoJo, forcing them all to deal with the shocking revelation that everything they know, everything
Is
they've
a
lived,
lie.
and everything they've lost was just made up
Yep.
to entertain nerds like us.
Crazy.
Some take it poorly, led by a mysterious military uniformed baddie with an uncanny resemblance to Hatsune Miku. They band together to take revenge on humanity and wipe their cruel creators from the earth. Others
right, okay.
seek to protect the world and people that gave them life, though, and the people who found meaning in those lives, seeing a chance to break free of their fictional destinies and define the meaning of their own existence on their own terms.
That's cool. I didn't realize there was like the 2 flips. That's awesome. So you got people be like, "How dare you make us into this fake stuff and make me feel like I'm real? I will take revenge, and that may feel better." And it's like, "Oh, thank you for making us real and stuff." All right, cool.
So begins an epic off-brand Smash Bros. War of mech pilots versus magical girls versus stand users versus monogatari villains at home. But more than that,
I suppose it does open the possibility for like anything goes, really, doesn't it? It comes down to just imagination.
Recreators is a profound existential conflict between destructive and constructive nihilism. Or, to put it in meme terms, versus
If everyone is not official, maybe you can't be what you want to be.
exploring various ways that various character archetypes might grapple with the cold reality
One,
that their
two,
god
three.
may or may not be dead, at least no more than any other author. But if not, he is kind of a horny loser, which might be more existentially horrifying, though not as horrifying as the prospect staring down aspiring artist perspective character Sota, who's explicitly not the hero of this story, that he may never create anything that reaches anyone at all. If you don't find those ideas compelling, or the concept that fictional food can only ever taste as good as the author is capable of describing, describing, you may find yourself
That is
wishing
interesting.
recreators had a little less conversation and a lot more action. But for me, it strikes the perfect balance between
Okay.
mind-stimulating philosophy and mind-melting awesomeness.
So I think that's what makes Fate, Stay Night, and Zero so good. It's like it's not constant fight. It's like the build up, the planning. Who do we team up with? A little bit of lore about the servants that have been summoned, stuff like that. You know, a little bit of intrigue, conversations are going on, and then the fights are like, they added extra to it.
All of which gets wrapped up in a beautifully satisfying ending.
Oh, cool. Number 4.
But let's
Escaflowne is still not on this list.
Forget the metaphysical twists and RPG metagaming for a moment, because in 4th place, I want to pay tribute to an isekai that simply uses its formula to set up a classically styled fantasy adventure. Of course, gaming elements don't preclude stuff like Overlord from delivering that too, but sometimes you just want to enjoy an immersive hero's journey across a cool, imaginative world without any game mechanics involved, like El Hazard or Faraway Paladin, or Brave Story and Spirited Away if you've only got time for a movie. The 12 Kingdoms, adapted from a classic series of novels back at the turn of the millennium, is a shining example of this, with its fraught political landscape and thoroughly original Asian-inspired fantasy setting. But personally, I've always been a sucker for the Tolkien-esque, and when I want an isekai to whisk me away to a world of elves and dwarves, dragons and demons, I'm choosing Mushoku Tensei every time.
Oh, cool. So it's making the list. I mean, I agree. This is absolutely something else. Phenomenal. Opens up so much discussion, this anime, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
No fantasy anime, not even Freerun, makes its world feel more intrinsically magical. From big, showy attack spells to more mundane uses, magic is weaved seamlessly into countless scenes, constantly feeling like it could leap out of the screen if it weren't so masterfully composited into the world around it.
God, like the animation's so freaking good as well.
It's a true feast for the senses. The
It really is.
kind of immersive adaptation you wish your favorite books could get. And the legendary source material really deserves that treatment. Mushoku Tensei is the light novel series that popularized basically every trope you associate with generic otaku wish fulfillment anime. But here, they're way more than just tropes. They're essential components of a powerful story about a pathetic shut-in desperately using his unexpected truck-delivered second chance to drag himself out of the disgusting hole where he's spent the last 20 years wallowing in perpetual adolescence. The pathetic, disgusting, predatorily horny nature of that lead at his story's outset is undeniably a big deterrent for a lot of anime watchers out there, but Mushoku Tensei helped me realize I care far more about if art is honest, interesting, and well-made than whether or not I agree with it. I can't blame anyone who can't stomach watching Rudius Grey Rat, but I can say with confidence that they are missing out on not just a richly imagined and rendered world, but some of the most vivid, complex, painfully human character and story arcs in anime.
Yeah, man. Like you can believe this person. You don't have to agree with all his choices and everything that he does, but it is a very believable character.
There's isekai about how you're the coolest dude who beats up all the demons and gets all the
Gets done all the
waifus,
time.
and then there's isekai about how your dad's kind of a piece of shit, and you're still kind of a piece of shit too, if you're being honest. And you're both working on that, but one of you will probably die before you get there, so maybe you should find a way to love each other anyway along the way. And that's just one fascinating facet of Rudy's endless quest to be a slightly better version of himself every day, and his struggles to pick himself up and keep himself out of the hole when he falls short or gets hurt. A personal journey that's neatly mirrored in the mid-level D&D adventures he's spent the bulk of the last 2 seasons going on. Because unlike most of the isekai it's inspired that jump right to endgame, Mushoku Tensei also understands that the contrast between struggle and triumph, the sense that a hero has overcome actual odds, is essential to a truly satisfying power fantasy, which this undeniably is. Rudy does beat up demons and get waifus, plural.
Yep.
But those demons and waifus are also rich, grounded characters with complex inner worlds that contribute to making the equally complex outer world around them come alive like the most classic fantasies out there. Returning to that world last season is half of what inspired me to make this list, and I cannot wait to see Studio Bind, a studio that, by the way, was formed just to make this adaptation, tackle what I've heard is the best part of the books next.
Mate, I love that it actually uses the fact that there's a lot of Isekai that like it goes, oh, I'm teleport to another world, and then never actually uses the fact that they're from another world to like use character development, things like that. Rudy constantly reflects back on how he was in his past life, and then it's like, I don't want to be that person, or he thinks about why he's feeling a certain way, and then it's like, oh, so like things with like his parents and that, he kind of like has a disconnect because he doesn't really look at them like his parents, because in his eyes they're not really like, and then it's like, well, should I feel this way about them? Should I not? No. But anyway, number 3.
While we're getting
Escaflowne still not on this list.
back to genre roots, though, I'd be doing Isekai and all of you a grave historical disservice if I didn't acknowledge the genre actually got its start as a subgenre, not of fantasy, but of mecha anime, with a series birthed by Yoshiyuki Tomino, the father of real robots himself, Aura Battler Dunbine, which didn't spawn quite as many copycats as
I think we're getting Escaflowne here, guys.
Gundam, but still inspired enough to get
It's got to be on the list. It's got to be.
the isekai ball rolling with Genmu Senki Leda, Machine Hero Wataru,
These look
NG
cool.
Knight Ramune and 40, and most historically significant of all, Magic Knight Ray Earth, which just had a reboot announced.
Oh.
But even discounting that reboot, the mecha isekai legacy still carries on into modern times with Tenchi Muyo, the War on Geminar, and the grammatical nightmare that is Knights and Magic. Also, if you count Pocket Dimensions as isekai, Ray Earth has a clear spiritual successor in Granbelm, though if you do count Pocket Dimensions, you also kind of got to include Star Driver, which feels less isekai, so I don't know. And most recently, Trapped in a Dating Sim, the world of otome games is tough for mobs, simultaneously sends up classic
Oh, I watched the first couple episodes of this.
mecha isekai and modern villainess stories. But by far the best mecha isekai and the third best isekai overall is another that came out of Sunrise, the studio that Gundam built, dreamed up after a trip to Nepal by one of the only mecha anime luminaries who can truly rival Tomino's legacy. Macross creator
Yes! Oh, this is so good!
Shoji Kawamori's vision of Escaflowne.
Escaflowne! Ah! And this isn't just like nostalgia goggles. I have rewatched this a couple of times. Few times. I think I've watched Vision of Escaflowne 5 times. I love it.
Those
The
who know their
movie is a bit weird, but yeah.
Canadian anime history might accuse me of nostalgia goggled bias with this choice,
That's interesting. That no, it's good.
since Escaflowne was as foundational for millennial weebs up north as Cowboy Bebop was in the States. It's the series that introduced my whole generation to the unparalleled pairing of cell-based
Yo. Yes, this is so good.
Sunrise Sakuga, Yoko Kanno music, and a tight 26-episode story.
Yeah, the story's great. It's
But here's where I somehow get to turn a
and it also uses the whole isekai thing as part of the storyline as well. Like,
moment of shameful poor taste into a flex. Back then, I was way too much of a shonen bro to appreciate Escaflowne, so I only fell in love with the series as an adult when Yazzie asked me to watch it with her. And when I say fell in love, I do mean head over heels.
it's fantastic.
The titular transforming dragon mech Escaflowne is one of the most vividly imagined, meticulously detailed pieces of magi technology ever animated.
Oh my god, yeah, it is. Oh.
Every fight in the series, from huge robot rumbles to small-scaled sword duels, is distinctly captivating. And after I developed a proper taste for shoujo, watching Kimi ni Todoke and the like in my early 20s, I found all the ooey-gooey love triangle stuff that made me flip channels as a boy to be among the most heart-racing, satisfying romance out there.
It's class in it. It's like, no, don't go with him. Go with him.
Though she basically never gets in the robot, transported track star Hitomi is a brash, proactive protagonist who does a great deal to reshape the world and people around her. And the conflicts she finds herself caught up in are quite
What a bad
compelling,
guy.
steering her not just between her
And what a twist.
instant attraction to the princely Alan and growing feelings for the bratty yet valiant warrior Vaughn, but also between her desire to get back home and her increasing attachment to the world of Gaia and its people. Honestly, it's easy to relate. Escaflowne's world building is rich enough to rival any other anime on this list, and the painterly cell animation in which it's rendered gives it a certain texture no digital series can really replicate, even if Mushoku Tensei comes close at points. I don't know if there's any isekai world out there that makes me just want to live there more, though our next spot is a very strong contender.
Number 2.
Any genre that gets as old and crowded as isekai is bound to see its fair share of jokers, and since laughing's one of my favorite things to do, I want to recognize
Who doesn't like to laugh? Come on.
that by giving second place to the funniest isekai
Konosuba.
of all. If you're looking for a wry parody, the
Gotta be Konosuba.
hero is overpowered but overly cautious, does a solid job of subverting the tropes, while Uncle from Another World wrings comedy out of an otaku protagonist too old to actually recognize or take advantage of those tropes when they happen to him. Generally, though, attempts to spoof the genre miss way more often than they hit, so you're safer going for shows that just use the isekai hook as a setup for goofy jokes like Ixion Saga DT or Princess Connect Redive.
Do you know what? I enjoyed Redive as well. That was actually quite funny.
Handyman Saito in Another World shows how useful modern repair and locksmithing skills might be to a tabletop-style adventuring party, occasionally swerving in less comedic directions that Dungeon Meshi enjoyers might appreciate. Dungeon of Black Company uses its fantasy tropes to take a sharp satirical poke at the brutal exploitation of real Japanese capitalism, and while Reborn as a Vending Machine
Yo, that was good. That was good.
seems like it'd be a joke about how isekai is just running out of ideas, it's actually a very sincere love letter to Japan's most convenient form of capitalism.
Season 2 of that, I'll be watching that. No problem.
I've got a very warm, soft spot in my heart for surrealist anime that leverage the freedom of not having to be serious to just go completely off the rails, like Kamikatsu, Working for God in a Godless World, and Magical Shopping Arcade of Benobashi, one of the rare and special comedy anime that puts proper respect on Monty Python. But who am I kidding listing all these runners up? You all knew as soon as I said
Konosuba.
it what the funniest isekai was gonna be. Of course, it's Konosuba.
Of course it is. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hell yes.
God's blessing on this wonderful world.
I need to watch season 3 still, but that's going to be a brilliant binge. That's going to be so good.
Konosuba hit way back in 2016 when the isekai train was still picking up steam, before most of the stories it spoofs were even available in English.
When Loot Crate and Loot Anime were around, I remember getting the first volume of the manga in a Loot Anime box. Whoa!
So it served as our introduction to most of those Mushoku Tensei tropes at the same time it was mocking them. And that didn't stop us from laughing our collective asses off. Its character dynamics and situation traditional setups were witty enough to hold our attention all on their own without any of that genre context. And even after all that time, with half a dozen half-assed isekai parodies now competing for our attention every year, it's still as fresh and funny as ever. A lot of that can be chalked up to its consistently top-notch animation, which runs on that classic Ren and Stimpy principle that no character should ever make the same funny face twice. Not to mention the stellar vocal cast that matches that animated energy bar for bar. But of course, it's the writing that really ties it all together. Comedy ensembles just don't come more perfectly tuned than Kazuma, Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness.
And they're just... I would say it's very Always Sunny in Philadelphia dynamic with the group. Like, the chemistry's great, but they're just not great people.
They mirror and complement each other's quirks and copious personal failings beautifully, dragging each other down to more hilarious lows than they could ever reach by themselves, but also lifting each other up so they're ready to be knocked down again at the funniest possible moment. Whether they're barely surviving simple kill quests, cleaning up messes they caused by half-assing less simple ones, or, on rare occasions, actually trying to do something good for the world, their antics leave me howling at least once an episode. Konosuba's impeccable third season was the other recent anime that made me want to make this video.
Oh, so it's decent. Awesome.
I actually got most of the way through a separate script, diving
I wonder what one's gonna be. No,
into just what makes it great. But then I got cold feet that the season was over already and it might be too late, so I decided to make something evergreen instead. But that said, there is still one other isekai that stands above it. One that's prompted me to write more minutes of video than maybe any other anime.
Is it ReZero? Is it gonna be ReZero? Number one.
Perhaps the only genre more conceptually versatile than comedy is horror, which over the years has given us some of Sword and Sorcery's most imaginatively nightmarish settings through the dark fantasy subgenre. Some of Truck-kun's unluckiest victims have ended up in those sorts of worlds, though on the bright side, that does make them contenders for number one. The Saga of Tanya the Evil
Mate, what an anime.
mixes a bit of magic into one of the darkest moments in real-world history with its alternate take on World War I, which it uses in conjunction with the isekai hook to highlight the nigh indistinguishable similarities between amoral corporate ladder climbing and opportunistic imperialist warmongering. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's Drifters, a wild, dark comedy action romp from the
Yeah, it's gotta be ReZero, isn't it?
genius behind Hellsing that asks how real historical warriors would fare in a brutally grimdark, war-torn fantasy world. Spoilers, they do most of the brutalizing. By a similar token, the darkness of the Executioner and her way of life's world comes mostly from all the teenage assholes showing up out of nowhere with reality-breaking superpowers, hence why the heroine is tasked with killing those isekai kids before they can make things worse.
Oh.
And in contrast, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash
This seems
injects
brutal. I've
death
seen
and
stuff about
horror
that, yeah.
into its lush RPG-esque setting by giving its isekai teenagers no special powers whatsoever. Just weapons they don't know how to use against a horde of monsters as desperate to survive as they are. I'm honestly not sure if Planescape-esque dimension-hopping fantasies should count as isekai, but if they do, Dorohedoro is one of the darkest and most inventive out there. And speaking of dimension hopping, Sunny Boy isn't really dark fantasy, even if it does draw clear inspiration from horror manga classic The Drifting Classroom, but it doesn't really fit any of these other categories either, and I'd feel awful if I couldn't give such a beautifully directed, fantastically original anime at least an honorable mention somewhere before confirming what I'm sure many of you suspected since clicking on this video, that in my
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Season 1, absolutely phenomenal. And then we had to wait. And I was a bit worried when Season 2 came out. And when it started, I was a bit like, But my God, was season 2 awesome, and season 3, it's still got. We're in a time where we have ReZero on like a yearly release now. Well, maybe the yearly release, but still regular.
Expert opinion, the greatest isekai of all time is ReZero.
Yeah, okay, I can't argue with this one. There we go.
While it definitely ain't light on more viscerally terrifying
My God, there's some horror-esque moments in season 1, aren't there? Oh, when Rem gets all twisted and stuff.
imagery, ReZero is first and foremost the psychological kind of horror, built on a fear most dysfunctional nerds ardently refuse to face, that our favorite escapist media offers no real escape from the inner things that truly make us miserable and alone. It plucks its hikikomori hero out of the comfy, convenient society he already couldn't hack it in to plop him down in a world that looks like all the books and games he liked to bury his head in, yet refuses to treat him like its special plot-armored protagonist. Well, I mean, obviously Natsuki Subaru is the protagonist. The story's not about to kill him off, but that doesn't mean he can't die.
My God, and does he die in so many different, brutal, horrible, horrible ways. That rabbit one in season 2 was just like, and he remembers it every time as well, doesn't he? Like, imagine having that.
Over and over and over again in the most agonizing ways
that is
imaginable,
just-
as he quickly comes to realize that what if real life had checkpoints is the absolute least fun premise for a video gamey isekai. And generally that death comes as a direct result of his own Chunibyo main character syndrome, social ineptitude, refusal to engage with his surroundings, or inability to understand the needs and feelings of other people.
Yeah. And I like that. It's like, okay, you're doing all this and you're just making choices, and then but you're not thinking about everyone else. And then it's like, look at these other worlds where you've died in these situations and the life that they've had to live dealing with that after the fact and stuff like that. It's like, whoa, okay, yo.
Especially women. And with his isekai cheat power returned by death, robbing him of the one easy escape left for sad nerds whose hero and waifu fantasies no longer hold any real lasting joy, his only option is one even scarier than dying. He has to confront the things he hates about himself and put in the work to really change.
My God. Character progression. Yes. Character progression.
Not just for his own sake, but for all the friends and comrades
Who's that?
he's come to know more intimately than any of them could ever know through his many loops. And the one woman he comes to not just love, but respect above all the other people in Lagunica. Of course, speaking of Lagunica, the series also serves up quite a bit of that world-building goodness I've gushed about in other spots on this list, with layers upon layers of history, lore, and political intrigue, some of the most striking location, creature, and character designs out there, and 3 complicated interlocking magic systems that together create some incredibly inventive and, in many cases, existentially terrifying power sets, which in turn make for some absolutely crazy fights. No matter what you come to anime for, ReZero absolutely delivers. As a think piece writer, it's provided some of my absolute best thoughts. As a fan, it's given me some of my best group and solo viewing experiences. And as a man, it's helped me reflect on the world and my place in it to become a better one, and deal with some of the hardest shit I've ever faced. Like, man, the episode where Subaru says goodbye to his father.
Oh my God. Yeah. Freaking hell. We get some emotional stuff.
Is just... ReZero is, without question, a masterpiece, and without rival, the best isekai I have ever seen. But then, I am just one man with very strong opinions and a whole lot of time on his hands, so I'd love to see your personal top 10s in the comments below. I'm Jeff Thu, professional isekai scholar, saying see ya in the next other world? What does that even mean?
What does
I
that
have
mean?
written and talked so much in the last week. I can't even process this outro. Do you see how long this video is? I basically made a history of the whole genre and then formatted it in an
Into a top 10.
algorithm-friendly list. Thanks for watching that all the way to the end, and leaving a like or comment if you did that too. It really helps. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, that was cool. I like how it wasn't just the top 10 list. It was going through the different genres that existed and what has influenced what and what makes each genre good and worth watching and what's inspired what. That was really, really freaking cool video. And Escaflowne was on there, so it's completely legit. I agree. ReZero, definitely. I'm glad Mushoku Tensei was on there. Shangri-La Frontier, very pleasant to see that on there as well. Quite a few recents, but I think it just goes to show that, like, you know, as the years have gone on, people have learned what people want to see and then delivered on that. So yeah, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video and want to be able to watch Patreon-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series, links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support the channel. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you for that, and thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I will see you guys, all you guys, next time.